It's supposed to do that.
Okay.
So let's see if he's there.
There he's not. Just check. There, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm changing my name here.
Okay,
If it lets me. There we go.
all set to go?
Yep.
Very good. Good evening, folks. Town Council would like to welcome you to the Town Council Workshop of Wednesday, February 17th. Go over the retail and medicinal marijuana proposed ordinances that we have before us. We greatly apologize for the inconvenience of our last attempt to get this done via Zoom. Just know that it was not unique to this facility. I know so there was some neighboring streets that specifically my mom was out for 3 days with the internet, so it was not unique to this facility. So we apologize for that. Hopefully we'll be able to get through this evening's meeting without incident. So with that being said, I'd like to just lay a couple ground rules very quickly. We're going to try to do this within a couple of hours. Our cutoff time will be 8:30 this evening. Those who wish to speak have to raise their hand online. And I have a couple of monitors that are going to alert me as to the fact that you wish to speak. If you would, just state your name for the record. Let us know who you are, what address you live at or reside at, and give us a brief comment as to your support or non-support as we move forward. We greatly appreciate your input. So with that being said, Mr. Mead, do you have anything you'd like to add, or?
No, I don't think so, Chair. I think if we're going to turn the meeting over to our town planner, Jeffrey Hinderleiter, who is going to walk the council through the draft ordinances that he's prepared for you.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you for this chance to explain the ordinances. I know that the council requested a bare bones version of ordinances, but as I got into trying to develop the ordinances, it became pretty clear to me that the bare bones version wouldn't flow right and also wouldn't necessarily be fair to the council's review because you really, I think, needed to see not only the small things, but the big things too. So I decided to kind of go all out with the ordinances and give you the big picture, the full drafts. And one thing that I'd like to note is a fair amount of this language is original language that I developed on my own. Some of it is cut and paste from municipal ordinances in other parts of Maine. But as I was getting into this, due to our ordinance structure and due to our licensing structure, and the fact that we wanted to concentrate on adult use marijuana only, I found that we really had to create a bit of a unique ordinance or ordinances. So with that, really what these ordinances will do is it will amend 4 ordinances. The first amendment is essentially a repeal of the ordinance that currently prohibits retail marijuana. If we could go on to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So the First Amendment is a repeal of the current ordinance prohibiting retail marijuana. We adopted this a couple years ago when we decided to not opt into the adult use retail marijuana. So now that we would be opting in, we need to repeal that ordinance. The second ordinance is one that the council's probably most interested in, and that is the brand new business license ordinance. It's really pretty unique, and I'll get into some more details with this ordinance in a few minutes, but this is really the council's primary ordinance, Chapter 18. And then we have an ordinance amendment associated with Chapter 78, which is, as you probably have seen, all the adult use marijuana land uses, all 4 categories, will, at least as currently drafted in our ordinances, they will require planning board review through the conditional use process. So that required a brand new conditional use ordinance directly associated with the adult use marijuana business land use. And then finally, we have amendments to Chapter 78, which, although small, are probably some of the most important pieces. And this is where in town marijuana land uses will be allowed land uses. And I'll get into that right up front. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so adult use marijuana has 4 primary categories. We have the retail stores. I think they're all pretty much self-explanatory. Then we have the cultivation, the growing. We have the manufacturing, which can be products that have the marijuana within it. And then finally, we have the testing facilities. Now, as you've seen, as currently drafted and kind of based on our workshop that we had during January, right now, the retail stores are allowed in both of the downtown districts, DD1 and DD2, GB1 district, that's General Business 1, and the industrial district. And the cultivation, manufacturing, and testing as proposed are only allowed within the industrial district. So you see a picture of our zoning map on the slide right now that identifies the location in town where, if you look at that picture, all 4 of those areas, DD1, DD2, GB1, and industrial, would allow retail stores. Only the industrial area would allow cultivation, manufacturing, and testing. So that's probably one of the bigger decisions that the council will have to consider as part of this process. Also, I'd like to mention that the Chapter 78 amendments are amendments that will require planning board reviews. So once the council feels comfortable allowing the planning board to get a crack at this, then the Chapter 78 amendments will go to the planning board so they can provide a recommendation to you. But it's up to the council if you'd like to discuss this pretty big item, or if you would prefer to, I can continue to give you some of the framework of the ordinance, and then we can get on to the big points. But if you'd like me to pause here to discuss where the uses should or should not be allowed, I'm happy to pause.
Thank you for that, Jeffrey. I prefer to do it that way, just so we can work our way through the most difficult topics. And I know this is going to be one that's going to be awkward, but I just soon tackle it right up front, so we know where we stand and we can move forward probably with a little more ease as we get down into the meat of the ordinance.
Sure, and through the chair, if I may, one important piece to consider about this has to do with Chapter 78 and the performance standards in the conditional use ordinance. And what's important is there is a section that's called sensitive uses, and that it will definitely be up for discussion. And basically what the sensitive uses portion of the conditional use ordinance is that provides certain distances that the adult use marijuana businesses must be located from certain things, like public recreation areas, which is a big one that the council will need to consider, because let's take the downtown districts, for example. It may be the use may be allowed in the downtown districts, but when you think of the separation distances for the sensitive uses, it may, even though it may be allowed, it may not allow the use to be located in certain areas because it's within the basically no marijuana zone, if you will. So I just wanted to point that out real quick, and I think that's important to recognize, especially in the downtown district where they're so small and distances can grow quite large in small areas.
So is that in section 5, Jeffrey, of that ordinance? Is that under section 5, subsection A? Maybe we could go through that.
Sure.
You want to go through that one at a time, and we'll tackle it as you proceed down through?
Sure. Yeah. So what we're looking at right now is the Chapter 78 amendments. So you'll see that right up at the top of one of the longer ordinances that you have. This isn't a slide right now. It's just to point out this one specific section so the council can see. And as the chair noted, section 5, performance standards for adult use marijuana businesses, that's on page 4 of that document. And you'll see right up front, there is A, separation from sensitive uses. And I'll just go through these real briefly. One of the separation distances is a marijuana business cannot be located 1,000 feet from the lot lines of a school. Also, marijuana businesses shall not be sited within 500 feet of childcare facilities, community centers, higher education, public outdoor recreation. That's an important one. Church, synagogue, or other house of religious worship. And then what the rest of that goes through is the rest of this particular performance standards. It discusses the how the distance is measured. But you'll notice that with the sensitive uses, you'll see that it is based on 7 acres or more of a public outdoor recreational area. And what I based that on, first, there was a request to add these sensitive uses into the performance standards. So that's why it's in here. And so for the public outdoor recreational area, I based it on 7 acres. And the reason why 7 acres was chosen was that's the acreage of Memorial Park. So anything larger than 7 acres in size that is owned by a government agency could be considered that's used for recreation, could be a public outdoor recreational area. And one of the big public outdoor recreational areas we have is our beach. And I'm quite sure that our beach is over 7 acres. So that's important to recognize. And I think if you like, Chair, I can go through the other performance standards. We have a slide up right now that discusses some of the performance standards. Setbacks, you'll notice the first one, that's really the sensitive areas, which serves as somewhat the same principle if you take it down to its essence as a setback, because it's an area you can't be within.
That would be helpful, Jeffrey. Let's do that. Go right ahead if you would.
Sure. Okay. Yes. Thank you. So another standard that the council may want to consider is days and hours of operation. Should we put some sort of limitation to the days of the week and the hours these marijuana businesses are open? The size limitation. The size limitation is associated with both the cultivation and manufacturing facilities, because they're much more of an intense use and have the potential for more impacts than the testing. The testing's more of the scientific end. So we have size limitations to either the canopy area for the growth facility in terms of the cultivation, and also the manufacturing facilities more based on a square footage area, the building itself. And
if I could just interrupt for a second. So council, if you want to follow along on what Jeffrey's put in the ordinance, he's now on page 5C. So as he's going down through these, you'll see them. You can flip the pages and follow along.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Yep. And then number C, we're on size limitation number or letter C right now. Number 3 is specific to adult use marijuana stores. So this is the stores. And you'll see that within this particular standard, it's separated between GB1 and industrial, and also DD1 and DD2. You'll notice a couple other areas in the ordinances where we have adult use marijuana stores and the zoning, the downtown district separated from the GB1 and industrial, because I know that was a point of discussion for the council, a further discussion, and was just worth seeing that you can, even though the use may be the same, there are ways to separate it within the ordinance. So then we go on to D, which is the proximity limit. And this is the proximity distance that marijuana businesses are from each other, and also from medical marijuana businesses that we currently allow in town. And that distance is 500 feet. We have E, areas of activity. This is basically where the activity of the business can happen. Like, so for example, retail, the retail, the sales portion, the stores can't have outdoor sales. So this just gets into some specifics about the area where the business operations can actually transpire, can take place. Also, an important one is they must be operated from permanent locations. And there's no mailing from those locations. It's not a mailing service. You can order by telephone or internet, but you have to pay and pick up at the store on the day the order is made. F is a specific section that is for the downtown districts. And as is noted in here, if the council choose to allow the adult use marijuana business, the stores in both or either district, we can create some specific standards that attempt to address some of the concerns that folks have in the downtown district. And these are just an example of some of those standards. I stopped pretty quickly. I just wanted to provide this as an example for you. We go to G, which is drive-through and home delivery. It was pretty clear that the council did not want to allow drive-through and home delivery services. So this prohibits those uses. Signs, also part of our discussion was we don't want signs to be out of control. You know, the number of signs, the square footage of signs, we want it professionally done. You know, interestingly enough, there's some state law associated with signage, especially in regards to the pictorial representations to ensure that it's not marketed to people under 21 years of age. So we have sign standards right here that are refer back to other sections in our ordinance, our regular sign ordinance, but also are specific to adult use marijuana businesses.
Jeffrey, if I may?
Sure.
I know this is of great concern as to how these stores are going to advertise what's inside. So for the general public, I'd just like to point out that pictorial representations of marijuana plant or plants or parts thereof, marijuana products, byproducts, or paraphernalia associated with the use of or distribution of retail marijuana is prohibited. So any store that goes up, folks, please understand there will not be any pictures, regardless of where this store is located, of any type of marijuana product within that store. So rest assured that by law cannot happen. And that's not our law, that's a state law. So I just want to kind of ease some concern with pointing that out, and I hope that does. So thank you for that, Jeffrey.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. Next, I is sale of edible products. And then J's a big one, and I know that this is a big concern for folks, is odor management. Measuring odor appears to be a little difficult. So basically what other ordinances appear to do is they have general standards, and then they leave it up to the applicant to prove that whatever system they're implementing to control odor will control it enough so it prevents such odor from leaving the premises. And the premises is basically the property lines of the facility. So this is one that I think we may be working on and revisit over time. There may be some better options in some of this language, but when I looked at the language in other municipalities, this is very similar to how other municipalities regulate odor. Control of discharges, which is the smoke, debris, dust, fluids. It's just kind of a catch-all just to ensure that any potential impacts associated with this use are mitigated for some of those catch-all items. Waste disposal, this is something you got to think about too. It is there's obviously going to be waste. How is it handled? We want to make sure that it's handled in a safe manner and that dumpsters and containers are screened from view, and that they're also monitored correctly. Security, M, we're at the bottom of page 7, ready to flip on to page 8. Security is a pretty big issue, and we have specific standards for security, including surveillance cameras, burglary alarm systems, locking safes, Yep. Okay. Deadbolt locks and so on. Then that's really the end of our performance standards right there. What's interesting for the conditional use portion of the ordinance, what's kind of interesting and one of the unique things with this group of ordinances is there are standards that are very similar to performance standards that are included in the business license portion of this proposal. And one of the difficult pieces with creating these ordinances was really the lottery process, because of some of the legal precedent that has been found where when you use a weighted scale for determining who the applicants are, I believe one version was found unconstitutional or was turned over in a court of law. So the random piece was important. That's where we can get into the application procedure a bit. But one of the reasons there are these extra performance standards in the business license ordinance is to allow the council to I guess to get some real qualified applicants in the beginning. So in other words, you can't just fill out a business license and you meet part 1. That will absolutely not be the case. When we get into that, there's much more detailed information, including these other performance standards that will apply. But I can stop for right now. Those what I just read were the performance standards for the conditional use, which really directly relate to these 4 adult use marijuana business land uses. So we can go back to that discussion if you'd like, Mr. Chair.
If we could, thank you. So perhaps we can touch on, and it may help us determine where and how we proceed with the DD1 and DD2. Go back to number 2 in section 5 for me, if you would. So where it says no adult use marijuana business shall be sited within 500 feet of the lot lines of a childcare facility, community center, the higher education facility, public outdoor recreational area. And you noted that the beach would be considered a public outdoor recreation area, correct?
Correct.
So 500 feet from the beach. And I'm just doing it simply. So a football field is 100 yards, 300 feet. So it's a football field and a half away from the beach.
Correct.
Roughly. So in essence, that takes out East and West Grand Avenue. I don't believe they're within 500 feet or greater, or they fall within that 500 feet of the beach, do they not? I would believe that to be true.
It likely it would. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that. So where did the 500 feet rule come into play? How was that? Where did that number come from? The 500 feet.
When municipalities look at the sensitive sites, they ranged from 500 feet to 1,000 feet. I took the lower end of one other municipalities that I surveyed when creating this ordinance. So I took the lower end of what municipalities used to make to set that number.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. It just clears up a lot of confusion. So thank you for that.
Sure.
So with that being said, our limitations are great within the DD1 and DD2 districts, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Councilor, have any thoughts or comments on that?
When you're asking for thoughts or comments, are you asking for thoughts and comments as to where an individual would prefer to see these retail stores located at, or are you talking about in regards to the recreational area, or?
No, I'm just, the 500 feet is comfortable, council comfortable with the 500-foot rule? Do we want to maintain that 500-foot rule, or do we want to try to work around that, or work with that 500-foot rule, I should say, not around it, but there's nothing, we're not working around anything because we're creating it, so it's just it's general conversation right now. I know, and folks, there's no, let's everything be on the table here. There's two driving forces, and it's two gentlemen in this community that's been pushing this forward for us. When one is located in the downtown area and one is located on Saco Avenue. So without those two gentlemen behind this, we probably wouldn't be moving it forward as swiftly as we are. So.
Well, through the chair.
Yeah.
I don't mind speaking to that. As we all know, there are two driving forces behind it. Whether they are selected through the process, through the application process, and through whether it's set up as a lottery or whatever legal effect it has to make it all above board and everybody, knowing that we've already also had others that approached the council or the town that have the desire to these operations, setting it up or trying to work it around two individuals in town is not where I feel it should be sent. I believe it should, my perspective is where it goes is not in the downtown DD1 or the DD2 area. Simply put, in GB1 and the industrial area. And if hypothetically one of those two individuals meets the criteria, is put into, if it is a lottery, because I don't know if we've come close to setting up what this process would be, but whoever gets picked can find something in the GB1 or the industrial. But to worry about putting it in DD1 or DD2 to accommodate two individuals from town that are interested in it sounds like we are steering it towards those two individuals, when in all reality, we were only asked by 60% of the residents to allow retail marijuana sales in town. So with that said, I mean, I don't mind throwing it out there right now myself. Not in favor at all of DD1 or DD2 and would prefer to have it in GB1 and industrial. So I can get the ball going, I guess.
Okay, thank you for that. So I may be misrepresenting my comment. I guess the reason why I indicated there were two individuals who were driving this because regardless of where they're located or downtown, is whether or not we want them as a council to be downtown. I'm not focused on accommodating anybody. This is not why I'm here, and I've been here to do that. It's the question is, where in town do we want it? When I merely indicated that two of the driving forces, yes, one is downtown and one is Saukville. I'm not accommodating anybody, so please let that be dispelled.
And I apologize if that came.
It's good, yeah, no, it's all good.
Just
No,
refine
it's-
it.
yeah, no, so thank you for that, because it worked out well, so thank you, so, yeah. Okay, so Ken, is there no DD one, no DD two? Jay, you have thoughts on that as well?
I kind of feel the same way. I don't think downtown is a place for it. I don't think, when we started this whole thing back months ago and put it out for referendum and all that, I've heard a lot from a lot of people, and downtown is just, I don't believe is the right place for it. So I think I would go with the DB1.
Mike or Louise?
I don't want it anywhere, but I know that's not the will of the people. I agree with Kenny.
Okay. Mike?
For the purposes of discussion,
This is all where we're at.
I hadn't ruled anything out yet.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to be fair through this process. There are lots of questions I think that we need to talk about and try to come up with some thought process on as we move forward. I have a concern, and I'll bring this one up. So we've talked about number of facilities, and I shouldn't say we've talked, because we really have not discussed anything, in my opinion. The discussion that we had earlier was very, very preliminary, and I didn't see that much was really discussed about anything in that discussion, but that's just my personal opinion, which I've already made clear after that discussion. Is the number of facilities, because that's as important right now.
We're getting to that next. That'll be our next discussion, yep, so that's why we're here tonight. The first discussion, Mike, was very, very vague. Yep.
So at this point in time, I'm trying to keep an open mind on the whole process of what I'm trying to do, okay? And I haven't ruled out the downtown for anything. It's our biggest business district, okay? So, it is our business district. Whether it's seasonal or not, it's the biggest player of the town. So I will rest at that. I'm gonna keep going.
Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. And folks, I do support it anywhere in town, with the exception of residential areas, obviously. I think we have an opportunity here to gain some resources and revenues that we haven't experienced in the past, especially during these tough times. I have no concerns that I've seen some of the stores that have been already started up in other communities. And unless you know what's inside that store, you have no idea that it's selling marijuana. There's no odor, there's no sign, there's no nothing that would indicate what's inside that facility unless you walk through the door. So you have to be looking for the name of the store to realize what's inside. I certainly haven't ruled out the downtown area, based on what Mike has said as well. It is our highest pedestrian traffic area. That's where the tourists flow to. Whether that's, I'm not saying we're gonna present a negative image if we have a store downtown, because I don't believe that we will. But it's gonna be the will of the council, and we'll go from there. But I just wanna start that dialogue tonight, so where we kind of get an idea of what everybody's thoughts are and where we're going. Okay?
Through the chair, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
You mentioned that could be a means for resources and revenues, but it's my understanding the only thing that we get off this is a business license fee. We get no money back from the state on it, other than the revenue sharing. We get no money directly to us through a local option tax, because that's not approved in the state of Maine. So the only thing we get is the business license fee, which has not been set yet. But my understanding from the town's attorney is that it has to be a reasonable fee that is within realm of what other municipalities charge. We couldn't turn around and say we want a $75,000 fee, because it would wind up in court and we would be able to get it. So we're talking hypothetically, and this is just hypothetically, if we were able to get a $5,000 fee, that's what we're getting. So to make anything like that realistically a revenue source or resources financially, we'd have to have 20 or 30 of them to get any substantial amount. So whether we have one or two, we're talking 5,000 or 10,000. It's not some big financial boom coming back into the town by having these. My idea of placing it where it's at is because the residents wanted it. I'm not placing it because tourists may want it. It's not gonna bring tourists into town, I don't believe, because they can buy marijuana at a store on Main Street or someplace else because they can get it in Portland or some other place. So that's not gonna make them come to a orchard. So I'm just trying to have at least impact on the businesses that are in the area that I've already stated that they didn't want it near them, and to still be able to accommodate the 60% of the residents that voted in favor of it, while also protecting the 40% that didn't want it at all. So
I also feel that there will be added expenses to the taxpayer in Old Orchard through the need for additional police monitoring, and also for the impact on the code enforcement issue.
Very good.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Jim.
Sean, would it be okay to read this letter from the police department?
Okay.
Tonight, you know, somebody wants to read it, I'm not.
Yep, I can do so.
Just so that the public can hear what was said by the police department. And I think it's something that, Sean, I knew you and I both lived it.
Sure, yep. So this is an email that came to council, basically from the town manager and the captains and the chief of the police department. The folks, it reads as follows: marijuana retail stores. Knowing that you will soon be making decisions regarding where in town to locate retail marijuana, we wanted to communicate directly to you our thoughts on this important step. We are opposed to introducing another temptation for already intoxicated people to get yet further impaired through the acquisition of marijuana products at retail marijuana stores in the downtown, especially in the area between the Brunswick and the Pier. Locating one or more marijuana shops downtown will promote, quote, impulse purchases or impulsive decisions by downtown patrons to access edible or smokable marijuana. It is documented that people who are under the influence or intoxicated are more prone to act on impulses and to make poor decisions. Old Orchard Beach is unique among Maine's cities and towns because of the extensive bar scene and large number of bar patrons in our downtown throughout the summer. In order to manage this environment, we employ a large number of summer reserve police officers and maintain an active and visible presence each summer night until after the bars close. On a nightly basis, our officers have to deal with belligerent, challenging, intoxicated individuals, often having to resort to physically restraining people or intervene in altercations between people. Observing and or overconsumption of alcohol is a given among the hundreds of patrons of drinking establishments. The town will be better served to locate any retail marijuana shops outside of the downtown and away from the bar scene. Doing so would require people to travel a distance that would require time and effort on their part. They would have to stop what they were doing downtown, leaving the area, and then return. Just adding these additional steps would, for that reason, work against impulsive buying decisions and create barriers for intoxicated or impaired individuals getting further impaired. Again, it is important to note, and it merits repeating, that Old Orchard Beach's bar scene, along with Portland's Old Port, is much more intense than any other location or main location. There are large crowds of people consuming lots of alcohol late into the night. Our police personnel will tell you that there is no upside to introducing marijuana to this already combustible situation. The GB1 zone along Saco Avenue is the most appropriate area of the town for locating all retail marijuana. Another noteworthy point is that the town does not benefit financially from allowing retail marijuana stores. With the exception of the licensing fees, all of the sales tax revenue goes to the state of Maine. while the profits, which are substantial, go to the business owner alone. Given that the volume of sales provides no financial benefit to the town, it makes good sense to locate a retail store in a location that does not place additional burdens on our public safety personnel. Finally, locating a marijuana retail store downtown is counter to the, quote, family-friendly image and environment that our residents and prior town councils have sought to promote and foster. Let's support more ice cream shops, restaurants, amusement rides, and positive beach experiences rather than introduce a marijuana store in the midst of the downtown. We are, of course, available to you for follow-up and discussion.
Thank you, Tom, for that.
You're welcome.
And again, as I'm sure you can remember, we stood many nights in the square, and at midnight, 1 o'clock, we all cringed when what we said the cages were getting open. And I don't think we need to add to that now.
Very good. Okay. So with that being said, Jeffrey, we have an idea of where council stands on the DD1, DD2, and where we kind of are focusing on the location of our retail stores.
For me, Chair?
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
know it's
Sorry.
awful.
Yeah, I have some pretty good guidance. I think enough guidance to bring this to the, certainly enough guidance to bring this to the planning board for the next step in the process. So yes.
Okay. So now as far, I guess the next sensitive topic will be the number of stores and how we select who receives the license for those stores.
Yes, yeah, and that's where we get into the second big ordinance that's associated with our group of ordinance amendments, the Chapter 18, the new licensing ordinance. So as you'll see, right up front in the licensing ordinance, one of the, on page 4, limitations in licenses. You'll see that right up at the top of page 4, blanks by each of these adult use marijuana businesses. And the reason why there are two separate adult use marijuana stores is, again, I kind of set this up with the option of having GB1 and industrial separated from the DD districts. So that's why you see it twice. So, you know, the interesting thing about licenses, when I looked at other municipalities, and that's what made this a little more difficult too, because when you have a limitation to licenses, how are you going to distribute those licenses in a fair way that's fair to the applicants, that's fair to the council in the selection process, and that's legal too. So why we have such a large licensing ordinance is primarily because we are limiting the number of licenses. You have to set up the procedure. You have to create how that's going to work. So in quite a few municipalities that have opted into the adult use marijuana businesses, they seem to more or less let the market and zoning dictate the number of businesses, as well. And zoning, I mean, certain zoning districts are allowed in, and then the sensitive use areas, the distance kind of dictates where these buildings or these uses can be located. There aren't a whole lot of ordinances in Maine, that at least that I found, that limited the number of licenses within each district. It was an allowed use. If you meet the criteria, you can open your business. So So right now it's blank, and this is, again, it's a pretty big decision for the council. Uh, uh, how many licenses do we want to allow for each use? If I recall back to the November ballot question, I think there was some language in there that said a limited number, or there was something in there that made me think of a limited number. But in this particular section of the license ordinance is where you have the number of licenses for each adult use. So I can stop here and you can discuss that, or I can get into anything else.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Council, thoughts on the numbers? So I believe, Jeff, just correct me if I'm wrong, when we had our last meeting, a little workshop with the town attorney, didn't she not say that it's council's option to choose our selection process? In other words, first come, first serve, lottery, or whatever options she gave us. It was council's options to choose, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out as well.
I'll go first.
Okay.
My thought is I had just allowed one of each of those in the zones that we talked about, so that we're not, I mean, I don't believe that we need, I believe that one accomplishes what the residents that voted in favor of it wanted. And then again, like I said, it doesn't overly impact the services in the town or people that opted to vote against it. So as you're asking, I would prefer just to have one. One of the retail, one of the cultivation, one products, and one testing that allows for something for everything.
Okay, thank you again. Alicia, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mike, yeah.
So would I be under the impression that we're pretty much talking about GB1 right now?
Essentially, that's correct. That needs
Are we going into other areas other than that, or are we just focused now? Sounds like DD1 is out at this point in time.
Well, there are three councils that have expressed their concerns and dislikes for those areas. So I would say those two areas are out.
So now we're locking in on the GB1 district.
Correct.
Now,
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes, yep.
Yep, through the chair. I don't think that the intent was for GB1 to be the location necessarily of testing or cultivation or production, perhaps testing. But Jeffrey, correct me if I'm wrong. The way you were headed was not to be putting cultivation in GB1, but to look at, was it industrial or what was it?
I thought, excuse me, if I may, Mr. Mead, I think Jeffrey pointed out that it was indicated the industrial park for the industrial area, industrial zones for those two options.
Yep.
Yes, and through the chair, I apologize, I wasn't a little clear. For the public to understand, we have something in front of us that did list cultivation, manufacturing, and testing in industrial district only. And I didn't verbalize that. That was my intent. I apologize. So
Yeah.
one for those areas only, and then one retail marijuana store in the GB1.
Okay. Yep, thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Mead.
so may I continue?
Go ahead.
So and I gotta say this so that everybody understands where I'm at, okay, because if it's so offensive for this to be everywhere, then there's nowhere for it. So I don't see any reason to have testing facilities and production facilities and cultivation facilities. And I struggle with the store. had conversation with, I think, a few of you about this. And my number was originally 2, as I had stated publicly earlier, for 2 stores, because I feel that 1 is a monopoly. And I don't feel that it's fair to only allow 1. I believe that there should be competition, in other words, okay? So now I struggle with how I support any, in all fairness. I'm gonna be right up front with you. And that these don't all become zeros for me at this point in time, because I struggle with eliminating one section of town, but putting the burden on another. Okay, we've heard that we don't want it in the downtown because it's offensive. And I'm not picking a side here, I'm just trying to debate. I came into this with an open mind, as I said, okay? But we've discovered already that it's not gonna happen in the downtown. So, and I know that push has existed. I've heard from people on both sides of the issue, so, but I can't put 2 stores in the GB1 is where I'm going with this. That's not fair to the GB1 community. We have residents that live there too. We're not only protecting the residents that live in the downtown and the hysteria that, you know, this is gonna change the downtown into some kind of a chaotic mess, but we have residents and the GB1 drives right through what we could probably argue is the biggest residential neighborhood in town. Okay, it reaches, I think, 150 feet in either side. And maybe Jeffrey can help me with this. I think it's 150 feet either side of Saco Ave. Jeffrey, does that sound right?
I believe it's more than that. I think it's either 2 or 250.
Okay, so hypothetically, you could end up in the middle of all kinds of neighborhoods. Stone Village, for instance, you know, I'll throw some examples out there, MacArthur Ave, you know, those are all places that,
Like,
okay, Kenny, go ahead and tell me your piece now.
so first I want to interject, when you say you spoke with us about this, you've never shared any of this with me, not 1 ounce of that you would prefer 2, and because it needs to be, because you're concerned with competition and all this other stuff. So we've never had that conversation. We may have shared it with others, but not with me.
Okay,
So let's be fair and honest about that.
okay,
So the thought of putting that it's gonna wind up in Stone Village or MacArthur Ave is almost ludicrous, because
Well,
those, let me finish
it's
now.
not ludicrous.
They are single-family homes,
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
So the chance of that happening are almost nil. Now, it also goes to the point where you say that you think that 2 would be too many. That is one of the reasons why I only want 1. And I want 1 simply because of the impact, and I don't think we need to. And I, as a counselor, have not been elected to turn around and make sure there's competition between 2 businesses. Okay, I, as a counselor, was elected to make sure that I'm trying to do the right thing for 100% of the people in town, not just 60, not just 40. So I think I'm trying to strike a fair balance.
Yeah.
When you turn around and we allow it in an area that doesn't affect the downtown businesses who we've heard strongly about. I can never foresee this coming in somebody's residential home and they're downstairs running that. I don't think it would meet the
My
criteria.
intention
Let me
was
finish.
in a residential
Let me
home,
finish.
their neighborhood.
Well, this can't be in their neighborhood because it's not a business in those
Hold on,
neighborhoods.
hold on.
They're on one
Okay,
side
listen,
property.
but hold on. Anything that falls in that GB1 zone would be allowed.
I don't disagree.
Residential or not, okay.
Well, it's the same.
If your
thing.
house falls in a GB1 zone.
And it's the same
you're
thing,
allowed
it's
to
the
allow-
same thing in DD1 and DD2 with all the houses that about the back.
You're absolutely correct.
So we can
Don't-
affect those houses
I'm
plus all
asking
the
you not
downtown.
to dispel rumors out there. Or
I'm
spell
saying
rumors
it's
out there.
highly likely. I didn't say it couldn't happen.
But it could.
But I believe
And Mike
with,
is absolutely 100%
I believe
wrong.
with the business license and the ordinances and everything else, it would restrict them from operating out of a residential home. Is that fair to say, Jeff, that we can make that so that it does not operate out of a residential home?
You could do that. You could identify a residential home as a sensitive use too, and put a 500-foot separation distance if that is a concern.
So what I'm trying to get at is, I know that you're upset that it's not going to DD1 and DD2. We can talk about this.
We're not upset with the
Hold on.
date.
Yeah,
No, you said that you
No,
wanted to talk more about it and that you
that's
didn't know
right.
that the
I
decision
said
was
I
being made.
came into this with an open mind.
Well, if you have an open mind, you should be
Okay.
open enough to
You
think
came
of
out of
the
the
GB one.
gate and said you were opposed to it before we even had a discussion.
You're opposed to
Okay.
just GB one and having one then, so.
I am now, this changed it, okay? I thought there should be one in each.
One of these,
Okay.
what, each zone, DD one, DD two, GB one,
No,
3?
and there should be 2 stores is what I thought, on each end of town.
Okay, then that's how you feel, but I can feel differently without you being upset with me.
And I'm agreeing with your difference right now is what I'm doing.
Other than saying that you don't want none.
I'm giving you what you
But
want.
we can't just say none.
Gentlemen,
We
wait.
can't say none, Sean. Let's be honest.
we can say
No,
no.
we can't.
Okay, we can.
We can say no.
Actually, and we have to go through Tim for this, because we made that referendum binding. And the majority of the voters on that referendum voted yes. Correct. So if that's a binding referendum, we as a council are obligated to move this forward, and that's why we're here tonight. My struggle with the non-use and blocking off DD one, DD two, if we have a store on Saco Avenue, whoever wants this is gonna stop at that store before they go to the beach. So let's be real, folks, it's gonna be all around town. Furthermore, the first store you see when you come from Walgreens to Orchard Street is a sign that says Sal's Smoke Shop, right on the top of the hill. That's the first store you see on Orchard Street.
It's a smoke shop,
But
Sean. It
it's a
sells
smoke shop.
cigars.
It's a smoke shop.
It's a, so it sells
But
cigars.
I'm just saying,
Come on.
okay, no, it's the same, there's no difference.
There is a difference.
That's advertised, here's our smoke shop.
It's a.
That's not what I wanna see on
It's a-
Donovan Orchard
oh,
Street.
God, it's apples and
So we
oranges.
get to know it's not. I'm just
Apples
saying,
and
no,
oranges.
it's not, but there's the point. So if we wanna debate this, whatever they wanna get, they're gonna get before they get downtown. So my preference would be to put one downtown, so they don't have to create traffic and nuisances on Saco Avenue in those residential areas or abutting other businesses to avoid that. Pedestrian wants it, we can limit the hours, we can shut it down at 6 p.m. We can do whatever we want to make this work, but apparently we'd rather not make it work and promote new businesses in this community. It's not gonna cause harm. People, don't be so naive to believe that people who want to use this are not gonna have it with them when they get to where they're gonna be. Please don't think that. It's been sold on the streets in this town, I hate to say it that way, for years and years and years, and we all know that. So this is where I get frustrated, and I'm sorry to be that frustrated, but to block 2 areas of town out without even giving a fair discussion, to me, was not quite the way to do it.
I have talked to the individuals who are interested in this retail operation. I have every confidence that they will keep their word and that this will be a honest process with code considerations and police intervention and cooperation. But I would like still one retail store in Old Orchard for at least a year to see how it works. I don't want it on Old Orchard Street and I don't want it on the pier. I think there should be limited operations, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 5, and strict accountability by code and planning. And how you decide on the one, I don't know, but that's what I have received calls. Not from businesses, but mostly from people who go to St. Margaret's on Sunday and the Salvation Army on Sunday as well.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, so with that being said, Jeffrey, I guess, Mike, are you all set? Are you?
I'm good at this point.
Okay.
I can't say anymore.
I don't feel the need to have a manufacturing facility or a testing facility in this town if we're only gonna have one store. I don't see the benefit to that either. I really don't. I don't see the need to draw that extra step into our equation if we're so concerned about what's gonna happen surrounding this. Why add to that equation if we're only gonna have one store and it just doesn't make sense to do that. So I right now I'm opposed to the growth and the testing sites for myself, so. Okay.
The one store, Sean, could it be a process of seeing how the operation will work, see what issues come up, see what code or police issues are relevant, and more input from the family residents of Old Orchard Beach?
I think, unless we try this, we're never gonna know. That's the point. If we try this and it fails, we can shut it down. But if we don't try it, we're never gonna know. And I'm not, you're right. Ken was right. The only thing we're gonna basically get out of this, unless the law changes or goes back to the way it was originally presented, the only benefit we're gonna get is the licensing fees. So if we have two or three stores, if we were allowed one in each zone, if we had 3 stores, it'd be $30,000 potential revenue per year for this community. It's minimal, but it's gonna have some offset to some expense that we have. So that's why I'm grappling with where we go next, and how many stores, and how we pick them. Do I support one of the 2 individuals somewhere in this town who brought it forward? There's an individual who's been patient with us for 5 years. My mind, he should have first option. That's how my mind works. And he is one of the gentlemen who's behind this movement as well. So I'm coming right on. I have no problem saying that. That's first come, first served. These individuals have an interest. They have a desire to bring a business to this town. I support them. And that's where I stand. So I do support the one store, but I don't support anything else as of this time.
Jim.
Go ahead.
Larry, are you there? All right, Jeff, maybe you'll know this.
Yes, I am. Couldn't get to my mute button.
Oh, I'm sorry. So there's a process that includes the state, correct? We can't just turn around and say, we decide we want so-and-so, or set up our own process without qualifications that are required through the state, correct?
That's right. Before anybody can open up a shop in any place in the state of Maine, they have to get licensed through the state. And then apply for a municipal license.
And there's qualifications that the state requires you to go through, such as potentially listing or having a place of operation already available, correct?
Honestly, I don't know, Councilor Blow, what their particular qualifications are. We can certainly find that out, but I don't know.
Well, I believe that's someone from I looked into. So I just want to put that out there. I mean, I personally believe if we're going to start talking about how somebody's qualified, I think it needs to be fair. I do feel for anybody that's living in town that would like to do it, but I don't think that that's what we should do, is to direct it or try to make sure that somebody in town that wanted it 5 years ago gets it now. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. I'm not saying they're not qualified. I'm not saying that somebody else is more qualified. I would struggle myself personally with coming to the determination as using that as the reason for my determination. Larry, is there, well, let me ask, is there a legal ramification if we were to do something like that? I mean, there's gonna be some type of a process that's gonna pass a straight face test, isn't it?
Yeah, I think before we got to a final point on how we were going to award a license, as far as qualifications and whether certain attributes gave people a leg up, we would want to just vet that with the town's attorney to make sure that we hear their advice about how we should proceed.
So if I may, just add to that, I believe I read it in the ordinance that any applicant is already required to be licensed by the state before they apply for a license for the town.
That's right. Correct.
Okay, I just want to make
I
sure.
guess that's what I was trying to say,
Yeah,
Sean.
So I just want to make sure that people know that that's already in our ordinance already. So we have that protection and that step in place before they even apply to us. So thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, good point. Okay.
So let's finish our discussion on facilities. I don't think we've concluded that yet, have we?
Well, I guess the consensus is one at this point.
Well, that just one store, the rest of them are gone. Or-
Yeah, that's right, as of now.
That's a consensus at this point.
Well, I don't have a problem with the other ones, but that's up to you guys. That's my opinion. I mean, when you're talking about something, you're talking about stuff that, in one sense, we're talking about it doesn't affect anything. In the next sense, we're saying we don't want it because there's only one. Well, the testing facility does not just test for that one store. They would test. Right now, I believe there's only one testing facility in the entire state, correct? Larry?
There's two.
Yeah, there's two now, yeah.
They just opened up another one.
Larry?
Ironically, in southern Maine.
Yeah, there's two. Counselor Signet is correct. One just got approval, a second one just got approval.
Okay.
And I also understand that that the expectation is that there's going to be more seeking to be approved because of the increasing number of retail stores. They're going to require more testing facilities.
So I understand that that testing facility would not just be testing for the store in Old Orchard Beach. I understand that. But my concern with that is why bring extra components to this equation if we don't want it to begin with? That just doesn't make any sense to me, and I struggle with that. So I don't support anything except that one store. I don't.
You support the one store,
I do.
and I do too.
So as far as the testing facility, would you support that or no?
To be honest, I haven't given enough thought to that.
Okay. Thoughts on that?
The testing facility?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna go with one. My point is gonna be one, no more than two, and one in each section of the GB one. Not two in one section. However we do.
So just a store and nothing else? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's just a store and nothing else? That there? Yeah, I'm the same way. So, like,
Only one GB, one section.
There's two in the town.
Right. Separated by DD.
It's separated by about a mile or
Yeah.
that's one mile. That's part of my point.
More than a mile.
It ain't much more than a mile.
I would support this. I mean, I want them, like I said, I want at least one of these, so I have no issue with that. So if you go get two, I'd go with two. One halfway, one down those small roads, I support that.
He's not saying downtown, he's saying on two ends of GB one.
Right.
So at the fire station and at the tax involvement. Those hypothetical ones.
No.
Please don't shoot me
It's okay.
down because I use those two locations.
Well, the other GB one is owned by Landry's Market.
Here it comes.
Well, it's owned by Landry's Market. You're talking about
Okay.
tattoo parlor. You're talking about tattoo parlor.
I'm not talking anything about Landry's Market, because Landry's Market is not in the GB one. Landry's is in a GB two. It's not even on the table for discussion tonight.
Where's Landry's Market at, Jeff?
Landry's Market, there's two sections of GB1. Landry's Market's GB1, that's one section. And then there's the section from the traffic light out to the highway. That's GB1 too.
Let's get that a little bit clarified now. Landry's is GB one,
Correct.
So that
where
end
does
of,
that go?
I was just gonna say, that end of the GB one, Jeffrey, can you give us the boundaries on that? Is it Landry's to where?
Sure, let's go back to the map. I think we'll be able to see it, the third slide. Okay, so
You can't even see this map,
I
so.
know, I got it.
can you see that? You may have a zoning map too that might help. But basically, the GB1 is pretty much Imperial Street, right out here by Town Hall. Both sides of Portland Ave, and it goes right up to Landry's, and it takes and it includes a small part of Hidden Pines Campground. So you see that kind of lighter gray area.
Is it Imperial Street to Foot Street historical? How is it both?
Yep, the historical's an overlay, so it includes both districts, Mike.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And
And
where
then-
does it end now when you drive by Landry's? Where does it end?
It pretty much, really the significant part ends right as you make that turn, and what's that small road that runs behind Landry's?
The Birch Lane, or is it?
Miles.
Mile.
Mile extension.
Miles Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not both sides of Miles, it's just the Landry side.
It's just the Landry's.
And that goes 200 feet either side into those neighborhoods.
The district kind of varies. I can't recall the exact distance, but it does, I think it's 200 feet. Or if there is a property line of a lot that abuts Portland Ave, then it only goes to that property line, even if that line was just 50 feet. So it's the closest rear property line, or if you have a lot with a lot of depth, like the old funeral home, for example, then it goes back to a certain distance. And I'm pretty sure it's around 200 feet. I can't recall exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeffrey, how about the GB1 on the other side?
Yeah,
Give us-
GB1 on the other side, that kind of, a portion of that shows up on, it's a little more clear on, thank you. So it starts or ends, whatever way you look at it, at the intersection by the schools where our traffic light is, heads going out to town. It's both sides of the road, either the same distance. It's 200, it might be even a little more. I can't recall exactly. So it travels along both sides of the road. You can kind of see it on that map. And then it heads up to halfway intersection and continues that same district pattern to the highway and then to Saco by the railroad bridge.
And through the chair, if I could just clarify for the GB1 that we were talking about in terms of Landry's, that area, it begins at Portland Avenue and Imperial, and then it goes down Portland Avenue. It only affects the properties that are on Portland Avenue, fronting Portland Avenue itself, and it continues down to Landry's Plaza, and then it goes down Portland Avenue to Miles, up to Cascade and back up towards Portland. There's as Jeffrey said, there's a piece of the campground that is GB1, but it's entirely taken up by the campground. So it doesn't go very deep at all, Councilor Sigmund. It's just those lots that are abutting Portland Avenue or Cascade, and then after that it ends.
Right, the depth portion is more on the other GB1 because you
Right, the
don't
Saco
have
Avenue,
property lines. The Saco Avenue,
Yep.
thank you. Yep.
Correct, yep.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay.
And it should also be noted, GB1 goes all the way, once it gets to Saco Avenue, goes out Ocean Park Road to the town line.
Very good. Thank you for that clarification. That helps a lot. So with that being said, Council, I know we have two options on each end of town. Personally, I don't favor the Landry's. There's a lot of turmoil in those neighborhoods right now because of Landry's and the traffic that's there. So I don't support a retail outlet there adding to that confusion and that frustration for those neighbors right now. So I don't know at that end of town, or that end of the GB1 district, if there's another spot, but if there is, I would support it, but I really don't support it in Landry because of what's going on with the neighbors running the store now.
Well, we certainly ain't gonna put it in this board district.
So that leaves
That's
us,
what you got left, okay? I mean, 90% of that GB1 section there is in historic. And that ain't gonna happen. If you got a fight with the beach, take that on.
so. Maybe we set our boundaries, I guess, that's where we want to be. We're looking at the GB1, basically this end of town, and that's it. Whether it's 1 or 2 stores, we'll grapple with that a little later, but I think the consensus right now is for at least one, and we can move forward. Let's move forward with that, Jeffrey, and we'll go from there.
I want to indicate, I have confidence in the people that have requested a discussion on this item. I believe that they would do what's best for the town. I have no reason to feel that they wouldn't. I just feel that right now, I'd like to see one retail store at least for a year so that we can see how it operates, what issues are raised, get feedback from the police and from code. And with limited operations, Monday through Saturday, and strict accountability by code and police. That does not take away at all from my confidence that those who are looking forward to this kind of operation would not do everything in the best interest of our town. I have every confidence they would.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Council, if I may, Fran or Jen, is there anybody that wishes to speak? As our time is kind of growing quickly on us, is there anybody? Well, Council, do you entertain comments from members of the public? Oh, yeah, that's fine. Sure, please do, yeah. Got him? Who is it? Peter? Peter, this is Council Chair Sean O'Neill. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Sean. How are you tonight?
Very well. Thank you for attending and thank you for listening as we grapple through.
Yeah, thank you all so much for your time, and a special thanks to the chief for being there. One of the things we heard him talk about was the type of disorderly conduct that we deal with in Old Orchard Beach in the summertime. And I can say without the help of his officers on probably more regular basis than most of the hotels in Old Orchard have to deal with, we are very pleased to be friends with the Old Orchard Beach Police Department. But with all due respect, one of the things I try to do is keep people away from their cars when they come back to the hotel. And it worries me that some of the folks stumbling back from the Money Bars to our hotel would jump in their car to drive up the street to buy weed. I guess I just wanted to put a few things in perspective. I was looking at the numbers in Maine in January of 2021. It's important to understand there were 35,500 sales for $2.74 million done in Maine. And the average sale was about $74. At our hotel, we can't control smokers. We tried to stop smoking on the property. We couldn't. I took all the ashtrays away, and in the morning, there were 300 of them in my driveway. And so we just can't control it. And one of the things that we've noticed over the last 2 seasons in Old Orchard, but not much different than our time in Wells, is the increasing number of people smoking weed on our property. We deal with it with guests who are upset. We deal with it with people who smoke in the rooms because they don't know where to smoke outdoors. And from the best I can tell, looking at Maine law, when somebody buys marijuana legally at the one legal store, they're going to come to my hotel and smoke it. And it seems to me to be about the only legal place there is to smoke it. And that means I have to deal with it. And that's troubling. We do have an enormous amount of marijuana. In fact, people with medical marijuana cards in Old Orchard can have marijuana delivered to their house within 15 minutes today. And it's happening every single day. And so one of the things I'd ask you all to consider is some sort of a seasonal license. I would prefer that my guests buy the marijuana they're going to smoke on my property, at my property, so they don't get into their cars, they don't drive elsewhere, and we can at least make enough money off of it to do the things we're going to have to do. Set up a tent. What are we going to set up a tent for people who are going to be 420 friendly? I don't even know how. If marijuana tourism is coming to Old Orchard, it means it's coming to my property, and it's going to cost money to deal with it. And if it's going to cost money to deal with it, it would be great if we could do it. And by diffusing the sales away from one location, you would lower all of the problems associated with stores and signs and crowds and traffic and driving. We could just eliminate all of those programs. You'd have more licenses to sell, there'd be more revenue for the town, and we could control it, and that seems to me to be reasonable. I was in Vegas at Planet 13, which is this giant marijuana store. They had to have 4 police controlling the traffic of the store, in and out, just unbelievable. So if we diffuse it and handle it like a liquor license, I can sell beer, I can sell wine, I could sell spirits. Why can't I sell marijuana? That's it.
Very good. So you would support in the DD1 and DD2 districts, am I understanding correctly?
I think so. I think so. It's a bit of a paradigm shift, and I understand it's a big challenge, but marijuana is here. I mean, it's here. You can't walk downtown and not notice it. It's everywhere. It's on it's obvious in the litter. It's obvious in the air. I mean, it's everywhere already. It's not like we're keeping it out.
Very good. Thank you for voicing your opinion and concern. We appreciate you watching us.
Thanks,
Really do.
guys.
Thank you very much.
All
Paul? Paul, can you hear me? Is Paul moving?
No.
Is that Peter Weedy?
Yes, the first one was Peter Greedy. Paul is, try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear us?
Well, I disagree with a lot of stuff that you guys are talking about. You guys.
Excuse me, could you, Paul, I know most of us know who you are, but you need to identify
I'm
yourself.
sorry, Paul Dolzbein,
Thank you.
116 Ross Road. I disagree with a lot of things you guys are talking about. Mainly, you're putting people in their cars now, like Peter just said, to go drive somewhere to get it. Downtown district is a business district where it belongs where the business is. You guys are trying to put the cart before the horse, and it's going to be a disaster what you're trying to do. Right? You're trying to make more regulations than need be. If you put it in an industrial park, there won't be any there. There's only one guy that owns the rest of the property down there. I disagree with a lot of stuff you guys are saying. I agree with Sean. We put one in each zone, in each district, one in DD1, one in DD2, one in GB1 if you want one there. But you go about this all wrong. Just like when you put the barricades up in the square, you went about that all wrong too. Good thing somebody gave you a map how to correct that. Long story short, you got to think before you jump. You guys are making the wrong decisions. Thank you.
Thank you as well, Paul. David, hi. Good evening, David. How are you?
Good evening. How are you?
Very well. Could you just state your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is David Witten. I own Sticky Bud Farms up here in Wyndham, and I reside in Gray, but I am interested in possibly operating a retail operation in Old Orchard. I think that I have to comment that I believe that having just one store is not very competitive, and I think it creates a monopoly. And not to sound disheartening, but I disagree also with the first come first served. I mean, I served on the Wyndham Task Force, and we worked in conjunction with the town council in developing the ordinances, the amount of stores that would be allowed, both medical and for adult use. And it was quite a process, and it ultimately resulted in 2 adult stores, and currently there's 8 medical stores. And excuse me, I've always loved Old Orchard Beach, and my grandparents moved to Maine because of Old Orchard Beach from Canada. So I've loved being down there every summer and hanging at the beach and staying at the Beachwood. But anyway, I find it it would be great if you could have allowed some stores done very classy, very secure, and it can be done. I mean, like another gentleman commented about Planet 13 in Las Vegas. I mean, you go in these dispensaries and you really don't know what's for sale. I think being a responsible cannabis operation myself. We do millions of dollars a year, a year. We've been open for 3 years now up here in Wyndham. So I think that I have pretty good knowledge to, talk about these things. And to have it right down like in the pier, I would say that that's definitely not a good idea. And I think I think his name was Peter Guidi. He spoke of, doing it in hotel. I mean, he makes a valid point that, you're not supposed to be using your cannabis or marijuana in public. So, it's a different crowd in my, looking at it after doing this for 3 years, there's a difference between people who drink and the way that they react and the way that they perform versus somebody who smokes. So, and the police department has a very valid point as well. I mean, being up here in Wyndham, last time I spoke to the police chief, there wasn't a rise in any, under the influence type of things. I think that can be done responsibly. If you've ever been to Nashville or Las Vegas, there's limos. I mean, we actually have a limo bus that we could transport people if, say, that we were up the street or up a ways from the beach, which, I mean, there's a lot of kids there. So I'm kind of mixed on it myself. I'm kind of rambling. I know I'm probably taking more than my 3 minutes, but if there's anything I can do to help or answer any questions, I'd be happy to do so.
We thank you for that offer, and we may reach out. Thank you for that.
Well, that wasn't too bad, was it?
Good evening. I believe we have one attendee who would like to speak.
Yes, the gentleman or the individual named Smith, you're able to talk now?
Yes.
Go
Can you
ahead.
hear?
Yes,
Yeah.
good evening. This is Sean Neal. Good evening. How are you?
Good. This is Kathy Smith, 2 Whispering Pines Drive. How are you?
Very well. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening to us, Kathy.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really important. And I really enjoyed your conversations tonight. I really have. And I think for us, baby stepping into this is a good way to start. I like the ideas of, seeing how it goes for a year. I am opposed for it being in the DD1 and the DD2. We've got a long history here in Old Orchard Beach, and just of where we've been trying to go these last few decades. And I think we've done a really great job. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have retail stores here. I didn't want to have retail stores here, but that's what the citizens have voted in. And I think the GB1 and the industrial zones that somewhere, my thought is if you build it, they will come. No matter where you put it, the tourists will go. I'm not concerned about people having access downtown. I heard the letter from the police chief, and I thought that was a really great letter. And I think it's something that we seriously need to think about. And for me, this is definitely something I think we need to take slowly, see how it goes, and then go from there.
Very good. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Memoris, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter Memoris from 30 Saco Avenue. I would like to take this opportunity to compliment the town council and the town manager, Larry Mead, for your efforts in addressing the mandate of the 62% of OOB's residents who voted in favor of allowing adult use retail stores in town. As is the case with councilors from other municipalities that we have dealt with on this issue, I'm particularly impressed by the concerns that you have expressed for the 38% who still have some reservations at this point. They are counting on the council to make sure that since OOB is going to adult use, that most mutually beneficial relationship to both the town and the applicant can be reached. I've been told over and over again by you as stewards of the town that you want to craft an ordinance that not only pleases a majority of this generation's residents, but generations to come. If done well, future residents will look back at this ordinance as fair, well thought out, a benefit to the town, and most importantly, not random or haphazard. This said, our town planner, Jeffrey Hinderleiter, has put together a great draft for you. It is quite comprehensive and covers nearly everything. There are 2 points, however, that any applicant must be tied to a specific location with at least a 5-year lease in place or ownership of the property where the prospective store would be located. Thank you for allowing me to address the council, and my son Thomas is going to speak next. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you as well.
Hi, my name is Tom Morris. I'm a resident of Old Orchard Beach. I sit on both the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Comprehensive Plan Committee. My work on these boards over the past several years has given me a unique perspective of where the town of Old Orchard currently stands and where it hopes to be, especially in regards to land use and zoning. I'd like to start off my testimony tonight by commending Town Planner Jeffrey Hinderleiter on the first draft of the ordinance. I believe he did a great job establishing the groundwork for the Town Council to make further tweaks. The sensitive uses that were chosen make sense for Old Orchard, and I think he got the separation distances spot on. I would not recommend increasing the buffers any further. They currently protect the town's most important assets while still leaving some areas available for potential businesses to operate. The Ordnance and Licensing section both do a good job of addressing the performance standards that stores will need to put in place to ensure successful operation without having a negative impact on the local community. In particular, I really like the idea of requiring a neighborhood compatibility plan and community relations plan, along with the business plan, security plan, and odor mitigation plan. With that being said, this council still has the tough task of picking how many stores the town should have, where these stores should be located, and how to award the licenses to the most deserving applicants. I'd like to use the rest of my testimony tonight to give a brief analysis of potential zones where stores could realistically go. To start, I would like to identify the 2 closest uses to a marijuana store that currently reside in Old Orchard. The closest common use to a marijuana store in Old Orchard Beach is a pharmacy. This use is regulated by the state and feds to responsibly store, track, and sell controlled substances under very strict performance standards. This use currently resides in DD2 with Walgreens. The second closest common use to a marijuana store is a liquor store. Alcoholic products are sold to anyone over the age of 21, and these stores are heavily regulated by the state and follow strict performance standards. Both liquor stores and marijuana stores are regulated under the same state Department of Administrative and Financial Services. Currently, this use is found in DD2 with Walgreens and GB1 with Poppins Market. This leads to my recommendation that the town allow adult use marijuana stores to operate in DD2 and potentially GB1. According to the town ordinance, DD2 represents a natural expansion of the DD1 district into adjacent underutilized parcels for the purpose of increasing the critical mass of commercial space and diversity of goods and services essential to provide for a strong local economy. This gives the town the benefit of having a downtown district use that is not on Old Orchard Street. This brings a year-round diverse business to an underutilized area that will significantly enhance the local economy. Just to make it extremely clear to the council, DD2 is not DD1 and needs to be separated when it's analyzed. Do not combine these 2 zones. Finally, with all due respect, the decision on where these stores should be located should not be based on personal opinion. It needs to be done through analyzing the purpose of each zone uniquely, referencing the comprehensive and future plan of Old Orchard Beach, and seeing where similar uses are already located in town. Thank you all for your time tonight, and I look forward to working with you further in the process. We just have one more person here, my brother Patrick, who has one final testimony. How are we doing? This is Patrick Morris. I just want to kind of reinforce what Tom said. I just hear a lot of opinions about where citizens and councilors want these stores. I just haven't heard any of the words use, current uses, comprehensive plans, or any analysis that would make this a fair discussion. I keep hearing that it shouldn't be in a zone and it should be in this zone, but I haven't heard analysis as to why it should be in that zone or why it shouldn't be in that zone. I implore the council to use the town's own plans, definitions, and uses to determine where these stores should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Okay. All set. Good evening, Mr. Harrisburg. Are you there?
I think we're muted.
Good evening, Mr. Harrisburg. Are you there?
Okay, you hear me?
I can hear you now, Harold. Welcome, sir.
Okay, Harold Harrisburg, 11 East Grand Avenue. And I like that 500 feet, but it should be 1,000 feet, by the way. So we keep it out of the downtown area completely. And I very like what Chief Kelly, I agree with him 100%. It's going to cost us more money for police department, public works, and everything else to clean up messes and everything else in the downtown area. Where it should be, oh, by the way, competition. Yes, everyone's worried about one store being competition. You're going to have stores all around you, Biddeford, Saco, Scarborough, Portland, everywhere. Someone's coming to the beach, they're going to pick something up somewhere else. They're going to be the same competition. It's just like having one major grocery store. You've got them all around. They don't have to spend their money in Old Orchard. They can go to other grocery stores. Second of all, you want to do the in the industrial park, which is a great place. Why can't you do the retail store there also? Like they say, you build it, they will come. And let's go back one more step to the motels worrying about smoking marijuana. Now, this gentleman here was in Las Vegas. When he checks into a hotel, it's a non-smoking room. He's got a sign it's a non-smoking room, or they're going to charge his credit card for X amount of money if he smokes regular cigarettes, marijuana, anything else. In our motel, we have the same situation. When someone checks in, they sign, and it specifies that they cannot smoke in a room or on the premises of the property. Well, that's about basically everything I can say right now. And I wish you all luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harrisburg. Nice to hear from you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. At this point, there are no other attendees, so I'll bring it back to Mr. Mead or Jeffrey. If you want to have closing comments, Jeffrey, what would you like from us as your next step of guidance? What do you need, sir?
Two things come to my mind. One is, do you think the ordinances are ready to be considered by the planning board? And when I present to the planning board, would you like me to still keep some of these topics open? For example, the DD1 districts as an open topic. So the planning board, who may have who has a bit of a different view in some cases in the council, can offer you their thoughts and maybe help you with the decision. Also, I think some of the comments about the comprehensive plan. I know the comprehensive plan didn't visualize marijuana as a use, our current comp plan. So we have to find things that are similar to the type of use. But maybe to help you with your analysis, we could do our own sensitive uses map, so you can get an idea of where the use would be prohibited, even if it is allowed. Prohibited meaning that it falls within the sensitive use area. Allowed meaning that it's still allowed in the district, but it's prohibited because it's within the sensitive use area. So I guess my two comments are, do you feel comfortable if we present this to the planning board pretty much as is? And the second comment, would you like some more information to schedule another workshop to further analyze some of the sticking points, some of these primary points that we have tonight? And happy to do either.
Okay, thank you for that.
Chair O'Neill?
Go ahead, Mr. Mead.
Can I add one more question? I didn't hear from council whether you wanted the next draft of the ordinance to include the other uses other than the retail store. I wasn't clear on where the council landed on that.
I think we landed in the one store.
Well, so I guess in fairness to the process, this is a workshop. This is our first workshop where we've had a very, how do I phrase it? Very frank discussion, if you will, on some of the directions and wishes of council. Personally, I think the more input we have, the better off we are in making a more sound decision. Whether it's just the one store, whether the planning board sees something in someplace else, or has concerns with some of the zones we're already looking at. So I'd personally like to leave it open to the planning board and let them have their say in it, and give us their feedback on it. Again, this is the first time we've actually, as a group or a body, had these difficult discussions, and that's glad it went basically as carefully as it did, because it could have been a lot worse. So I thank council for that. But my opinion, council, if you're in agreement, just let it go to the planning board as is and let them make their recommendations. And I mean, as far as the number of stores, I just see it as a benefit to us. We can, Jeffrey, you know, and you can share with the planning board our thoughts. And we're focusing right now just on the GB1. And then we're down to basically 1, possibly 2, and 2's a stretch. But, and right now there's no interest really in the other facilities. But I think it's beneficial to let them weigh in and go from there as well.
I agree with what you said, that to instruct Jeffrey where our thought process is, right? And let them grapple with that and then get what their thoughts are and come back to us on it.
So you want to exclude DD1, DD2 altogether still?
Yes.
Okay.
To the chair.
See, I don't think that does the process do justice myself, but I respect that, that's all. Yeah.
So, real quick if I could.
Yeah.
So, we didn't discuss DD2 tonight at all. Didn't really come up in the conversation until a caller joining us brought that up. So, are we eliminating DD2 altogether? Is that, because we haven't had that discussion yet. We did not discuss anything about DD2 tonight. So to move anything forward at this point in time without eliminating a couple of more things is, I don't want to say don't do it, but don't be upset if you spend a bunch of time doing something that was done for nothing at the end, okay? So, but is there a consensus right now to, and I don't know the magnitude of DD2 right now. I did not focus on this personally, okay? So because that encompasses parts of Main Street and other places that I have to study a little bit, okay? I didn't prepare for that for this meeting. However, we did hear from somebody who offered up another zone, I guess, okay, that should be part of a fair discussion. This is where I'm going with this again, okay, trying to keep an open mind as to who wants it, who don't want it, and you know, what neighborhoods it might end up in and what neighborhood it might not, okay, because none of it's gonna be fair at the end anyway. And so the 5 councilors to pick a spot where this is gonna go is a very difficult and daunting task, in my personal opinion. Controlling who gets it, you know, Louise has commented a couple of times. Certainly we know about the people that are here, but there are gonna be many people that are gonna apply, okay? We are not gonna control who comes in my personal opinion. And you're right, the process should run itself, but I think that's another part for the lottery thing needs to be discussed and figured out a little bit. We need legal help to figure out what we can and can't do there. And I feel that I should know as a counselor before I say yes or no, what that process is going to be. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to, okay?
I want to know what other options are open to us now. You know?
Well, if you research what's going on, you know, Portland, you know, made some big mistakes and it costed them big, okay? Because they ended up giving 40 people licenses that they weren't gonna give licenses to because it got ruled against them, okay? So these are things now, I don't anticipate that happening on Orchard, but what we got from the lawyer a few weeks ago was not maybe as definitive as what we probably should have front of us, so we should have an idea what the plan is for a lottery.
So that aside, because that's a totally different topic,
Yeah.
discussion, because we
I
never even
raised
touched
the
it.
two things is what I did here.
So
okay?
what I'm suggesting, or my thought is that the consensus as of right now is GB 1 and 1. By giving that to the planning board and letting them know what the consensus is, does not mean that they should just look at that without taking into consideration other areas. I'm not saying that. I value what they'll have to say. In the end, we as a council make that decision, but I'm not closed-minded to what they have to say. I'm just telling you as the chair and the public where I'm at. Now, if we're gonna give it to the planning board, I think they should know the consensus. We have not always agreed with the planning board. The planning board has not always agreed with us. But I've always listened to what they've had to say and thought about it. So I just think that they should know where we're at. And then we want to hear from them as to what their thoughts are. And as far as how we come about who gets a license, I believe that legal has to get very involved in that.
I would say we're ready to move that forward somehow. What I'm gonna
Well,
say.
I think we are, absolutely, but I don't personally think that I'm prepared to say to legal, this is what I want. I want to hear what they have to say.
I don't think you're gonna have a choice in what you want at the end of the day.
I'm not saying I want a choice, I'm just saying, you're not hearing what I'm saying.
Well, I think
Based on our thing, I think we clearly have a choice.
We do have a choice, there are options.
lottery,
Yeah, well, there's options.
Yeah, right.
There's options, but I want to hear those options
We agree with
from the town's attorney, who's actually helped set this stuff up in other municipalities. So we're not limited to only one way of doing it. So.
So council, just so, okay, so my suggestion was to leave or direct the planning board to move this forward in a fashion that they know a consensus, but leave it open for their input, is that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, okay. So Jeffrey, did you understand that?
Yeah.
So, okay, all right, I'm not sure, I'm looking away and I'm not sure what you can hear, what you can't hear, so.
I'm writing notes. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You have one hand that's waiting.
Okay.
Can you take that?
Yeah, we have one more citizen that would like to weigh in and give us some input. At this point, Councilor, may I
that's
entertain
fine.
that? Yes?
Absolutely.
Yep, please.
It's Megan.
Good evening, Megan, can you hear me? This is Council Chair Sean.
Yes, actually, it's Megan's husband, Matt. And we
Sorry, Matt.
yeah, that's all right. Yeah, it's her laptop. I'm on it. And thank you for taking time to speak with us. So one of the biggest
Matt, can
questions.
we have your full name, please?
Yes, it is Matt Taggart. I reside in Shapley, Maine. If everything were to go through smoothly for the one store that you're proposing, what time frame do you see this possibly opening?
Possibly May or June,
May or June? And
possibly.
I have to say, Jeffrey, you stand out as a light to me in this process. This is not the first time I've been through this process. I've been through this process with the city of Lewiston, and we're building a brand new store in Lewiston. I often say in business, you have to go where you're wanted. After listening to the entire meeting tonight, as an outsider looking in, although I live in Maine, I am not living in Old Orchard Beach. I did not feel welcomed. This is kind of an oddity for me. So I'll say this, if you're worried about zoning and ordinance and anything to do with legal, Jeffrey, I will happily put you in contact with the city officials of Lewiston who were incredible and productive and efficient in everything they did to help me get in position to open up a store there. So I want to say to Old Orchard Beach and everybody sitting there right now, there is a massive industry coming, as many people have already said. It is coming whether people want it or not. It is here. And the state O&P office has said to me, we want to do away with the black market. So if you can get past the vetting process and you can get legit with what you're doing, and of course, I've always been legit, you can open up and you can help create jobs and help the economy of Maine. And I'm not sure if all of you aware of this, but the state of Maine has one of the best bedding grounds to grow this industry. So I'm looking at this as, hey, we can help enrich our communities. We can make jobs. We can pay taxes. We can get to know our community and become neighbors. Let's create charities together, because that's what I'm doing in Lewiston. So Jeffrey, if you would like to talk to me, please email me, matt@emeraldriver.com. I would love to put you in contact with the city officials of Lewiston to help you navigate that massively complicated process that you're doing right now. And thank you for my time.
Thank you.
Thank you as well, Matt. Appreciate it. Okay. Do we leave anything else?
President, it's up to you.
Rich. Good evening, Rich. Can you hear me? Good evening, Rich. Can you hear me?
Rich, you're still muted.
Is it Rich Redmond?
There you go. Nope, he's back muted. I think he's having difficulty, Chair O'Neill, getting his mute button off.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I don't think, I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it, so.
Did we cover everything, Mr. Mead, as far as?
Yeah, I think you have, definitely. I think you've done great work tonight and tackled, as you said, Chair O'Neill, you've tackled a robust conversation about difficult topics, so I think you've done a good job. I think the next step, I guess the question is whether you want us to come back to you with a workshop or whether you want us to go to the planning board for their input.
So let me just poll council very quickly. I mean, it makes sense to move forward with the planning board. Do we have a timeline on the planning board? How soon they may meet on this to make their recommendation? How do?
Sure, I get it. It depends how we approach it with the planning board. With Chapter 78, that's really one of the more important parts because that deals with where the use is permitted. That process with public hearings, with the whole thing can take 2-3 months until you get a recommendation back. There's also the possibility that I could present this to the planning board. So maybe you get some feeling or feedback. I don't know how I can do that yet, but I can figure it out. Of course, if the planning board's willing to, where I can get you some feedback maybe a little earlier so we could, and then we can continue the planning board process, but you can resume workshops concurrently. Chair, it's a little difficult to say. My conservative estimate is you'll have a recommendation within 3 months, 2 to 3 months. So that's what I have.
So Jeffrey, can you get something on their agenda as early as the March meeting, or are you talking about April?
I can get something on the March meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with going to a workshop, I mean, planning board. But I do think we need one more workshop.
So, okay. So what we'll do is, so Jeffrey, yeah, so we'll send it to the planning board.
I would definitely want to store that.
Well, he's gonna leave that open. We can make those adjustments. Right, Jeffrey? So whatever the planning board recommends, we can always, and I'll use the word lightly, tweak to accommodate, whether it's one store, two stores, whether we expand to DD1, DD2. And we have that option at the very end, correct?
Correct.
And so that's, yeah, so, okay, so send it to the planning board if you would. We'll wait for their recommendation. If you think they're at a point in time where we can have a workshop, you know, that may coincide time-wise, it will be beneficial for council to help move this forward. Please bring that recommendation forward and we'll certainly react to that, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Council, no, so the town manager, Jeffrey, the police chief, Fran, Mr. Hemingway, Diana, and Jen, thank you all. If I'm missing anybody, I apologize. I can only see the names that are on my screen in front of me on the TV. So I thank you for your patience. I thank you for getting us through this. And I thank you for all your efforts as we move this forward. So council, I thank you as well. I know it's tough night, but we got through it. So thank you, council. And with that being said, we'll close the workshop.
So I just want to thank Jeffrey.
Yeah.
I think everybody here does. I want to know.
Job well done.
Very, very good.
Yes, thank you, Jeff.
Presentation.
Thank
you. You got all that, Jeff? Okay, very good. Yeah, I want to make sure you heard that. That's all. Very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you folks as well. Have a good evening.